Well, it is the last piece of business of the offseason, not counting players returning on the field. That's right. We're talking about the schedule release, and that day is finally upon us, and you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Cardinals Schedule Reveal presented by SeatGeek, the official primary ticketing partner of the Arizona Cardinals. Craig Grialou with you, and we have an all-pro cast with you here as we get ready to break down, dissect the Cardinals 2020 schedule. Darren Urban, Kyle Odegard, and Mike Jurecki will be joined momentarily by new Cardinals linebacker Devon Canard. 4:30, Darren, is the magical mark. We finally know the order of opponents and when those games will be taking place. Of course, we've known the who and the where. Now just the when is all that's left.
It's always a big time of year for a lot of fans, Craig. I mean, there's just no question that for whatever you want to say about the fact that we already know the opponents and we already know where the location is, and the fact that all we're doing is really talking about dates here, it does generate a ton of interest. And it's not just from the fans, it's from the media, it's the people analyzing like we're going to do once we have the schedule. It's always been kind of this rebirth time. Obviously, we've gone through free agency, we've gone through the draft, but it seems like even though we already know the opponents, that at this point, when we know the schedule exactly, it feels like, okay, the next season has finally gotten here.
Well, you have to play all 16, Kyle, but sometimes that order, how many times in a row are you at home? How many times are you on the road in so many weeks? That sometimes can matter a little bit as far as the flow of a season.
Yeah, this does feel like the birth of the 2020 season. And you're right. If you get stacked a couple games at home early, or if you have a really tough test out of the gate, all those different things can kind of have something to do with how your season starts and then moves along. So, yeah, I mean, we know who and we know where they're going to go, but I really like the schedule because then I feel like that's when everybody starts looking at it and, okay, maybe you can get a win here. This is going to be a tough road game, but really lay it out.
Well, this much we know: the Cardinals will face 4 first-year head coaches and 5 playoff teams: 49ers, Seahawks, Eagles, Patriots, and Bills. And then you get 4 trips to the East Coast, MJ. And, well, we'll have to wait and see, but there could be a possibility of the Cardinals back-to-back East Coast games in which they would just stay back on the East Coast.
Yeah, and each team can make a request. Now, the Cardinals have done it a few different times. Obviously, when they played Detroit and Pittsburgh, they stayed at the Greenbrier. When they played New Orleans, they went down to Tampa. Now, with COVID-19, you just wonder, are teams going to come back? But if they get a back-to-back road trip, teams can put a request in, and we'll just have to see if it shakes out. But that's what you ideally want to do. But with COVID-19, I'm sure a lot of guys are, want to know what's going on and how safe they're going to be.
I think a lot of people kind of look at, one, where does the bye week fall? And then, of course, how many prime time games are there going to be? Let's go around the table. All right, Kyle, you up first. Because of what the Cardinals did here in the offseason, free agency and the draft, what's the number? How many times do we see the Cardinals on national TV?
I know it's tough. They only won 5 games last year, but they do seem like a team that's on the come up. A lot of people know who Kyler Murray is. A lot of people know who Cliff Kingsbury is. The DeAndre Hopkins trade is adding to the intrigue. I'm going to set the bar low and say 2. I don't think it's going to be an extravagant amount quite yet. I think they're going to have to put together another solid season before the nationally televised type games are going to be up in the 4 or 5 range. So maybe these guys will disagree, but I'll say 2.
I'm going to disagree with you. I know Darren likes disagreeing with you, but I'm going to do it first. I'm going to double that number, Darren. I'm going to say 4, just because of all the buzz that we've heard so far, especially nationally, considering what the Cardinals did, DeAndre Hopkins, and then the improvements made defensively. This team, on paper, is a heck of a lot better than their 5 wins a year ago.
I think there's no question that you've definitely had a lot of hype coming in with this team, and there's definitely some sexy names now that Kyler Murray's gotten through a season, and you got Hopkins, and you still have Larry Fitzgerald and Patrick Peterson and Chandler Jones. I said on our podcast earlier in the week, if I had to make a guess about national TV games, I was going with a 3-pack. I thought maybe one of each, maybe a Sunday night appearance, a Monday night appearance, and a Thursday night appearance. I mean, we know they're going to get a Thursday night game, and I think it would be really a shock if they didn't get at least a Monday night game. The Sunday night game is a little bit more up in the air. That's obviously the biggest game of the week. There's a lot of nice storylines out there with a lot of popular teams anyways that we know about every year. And now you're going to have some other teams sneaking into the mix, like the Buccaneers with Tom Brady. That's a team that normally you wouldn't think is going to get a lot of run. And now that Tom Brady's there, that changes the whole equation. So I hope that the Tom Brady move doesn't necessarily knock the Cardinals off a perch, but when I think national television, I'm thinking 2 to 3.
What about you, MJ?
I would say 3-2. Obviously, you get the Thursday night game, but you wonder if they're going to match up the Cardinals against an NFC West opponent for a primetime game. That obviously is ideal. The San Francisco 49ers are coming off winning the Super Bowl. We know the Seahawks and Cardinals have played to the wire. Hopefully this year the Cardinals can kind of jump the Rams, but it'd be interesting to see a division game. And then if they get a Monday night game, you would hope that's home, just obviously with the fan base and everything else. But I'll go 3 when it comes to primetime games.
I mentioned the 4 first-year head coaches. 2, though, have been head coaches in the NFL before, talking about Ron Rivera and Mike McCarthy, the latter of which is now at the Dallas Cowboys. That's always an intriguing matchup, Darren, just because of the whole NFC East rivalry way back in the day. But it's been a little while since we've seen the Cowboys and Cardinals on the same field.
Yeah, in fact, I believe it was a Monday night game a couple of years ago, 2017 perhaps, when they came to State Farm Stadium. Anytime you play the Cowboys, it's going to get attention. They are one of the premier teams in the league, and you do have the history with this franchise in the NFC East, although since the Cardinals moved to the NFC West with the divisions moving around back in 2002, it's been a minute since that's been a thing. But I think you're absolutely going to be paying attention to it. And it's not like the Cardinals don't have a history with Mike McCarthy of late as well. They've knocked him off in a couple of exciting playoff games at State Farm Stadium. They were the team that ultimately got him fired in Green Bay when Josh Rosen hit Larry Fitzgerald with the bomb late in the game in Green Bay in the snow. So I'm guessing Mike McCarthy wouldn't mind another crack at the Cardinals.
Yeah, good history lesson there, Darren. Very, very well. Of course, as far as the out-of-conference games, MJ, the NFC West is paired with the AFC East, and it's going to be a different-looking AFC East because of the fact that the Patriots are minus Tom Brady, no Rob Gronkowski, but you do see, as far as coming to State Farm Stadium for the first time since 2012, the Miami Dolphins and another team you're familiar with, the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and there's a lot of Bills fans out here, and I'm sure they're just waiting for 4:30 to find out which game they're going to obviously go to. And a lot of people have, obviously moved out here like myself. Great fan base. And then the Dolphins, we haven't seen them. And based on what the schedule, is it going to be Ryan Fitzpatrick or is it going to be Tua? Obviously, that would be a great matchup. And you start looking at the divisions and some of these quarterbacks the Cardinals are playing. Josh Allen, they obviously want to score more points. They got a really good defense. They add Diggs to the repertoire. Ryan Fitzpatrick, obviously steady Eddie. Sam Darnold, I think they want to see more from him. And then we could see a rookie quarterback in Jarrett Stidham with the New England Patriots. So it's not murderer's row. The Cardinals avoid Drew Brees this year, Tom Brady, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Deshaun Watson, and Matt Ryan. So again, last year we thought in week 3 we would see Cam Newton. It was Kyle Allen. So it's hard to predict, but I like the matchups on paper.
That's all good news, but of course the Cardinals are inside the best division in all of football, the NFC West, which had a winning percentage of over 60 a year ago. And of course, Kyle, that's still where everything goes through. And it's Seattle, it's the Rams, it's the 49ers. They've all been kind of shuffling, including the Cardinals, as far as the head of the division. But even this year and the amount of changes, especially with the Los Angeles Rams, there's not an easy matchup in that bunch.
No, not at all. And the Rams have obviously lost quite a bit of talent from last season, but it's a team 2 years ago who made the Super Bowl. The San Francisco 49ers very nearly won the Super Bowl a year ago, and Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson. So the Seahawks are going to be tough no matter what week you play them, no matter where you play them. I think Mike's right. You need to make hay in your non-conference schedule because there are some games there that are for the taking, and then you'll see. I mean, it's going to be a heavyweight battle in the NFC West. The Cardinals did play pretty well at times in the NFC West last year. They went toe-to-toe against the 49ers. And if they can continue on that and finish maybe 3-3 in their division, I think they'll be set up pretty well.
And I think the Cardinals are much more set up to be a playoff contender as long as everything works out the way we all think it can, Darren, because of what they've done in the offseason. The biggest addition coming on the offensive side with the matchup, or the acquisition, I should say, of DeAndre Hopkins. Really anxious to see him on the field, and hopefully sooner rather than later to see that pairing with a Kyler Murray.
If you would have said going into the offseason that the Cardinals' desire to upgrade the wide receiver core and potentially get a number one receiver would be with DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who's been an All-Pro 3 years in a row and is in his prime, nobody would have believed it. I mean, I didn't believe it the day the trade was coming down. I mean, the fact that David Johnson was dealt away, that did not surprise anybody. But the fact that they got DeAndre Hopkins in the deal, it was a fantastic move by Steve Keim and this organization. And I think it really changes the dynamic towards how you would look at this team heading into this season. I mean, the draft was part of it. The free agency was part of it, but the trade itself for Hopkins, it really underscored, I think, the mentality of where this team is. And, Steve Keim has said it a couple of times about, when you have a franchise quarterback on his rookie contract, as Kyler Murray is, that gives you the flexibility with the rest of your roster to build it up pretty strong. And that's the window when you really want to do some damage and make a real push. And that's where they are with Kyler Murray. And when you make the trade for DeAndre Hopkins, that really kind of underscored, okay, they understand where it's all at right now. And this team, we can talk about winning 5 games last year and potentially getting to 500 or making a playoff push. But I don't think there's any question with the moves that they've made that the intention is absolutely to make the playoffs this year.
Well, and Hopkins, Kyle, is the only new name on that offense. If there are going to be some new names on the offensive line, whether that's Mason Cole or Marcus Gilbert, they've at least been in this offensive system. Hopkins is the only unknown as far as how he's going to fit because he's entering his prime. He's certainly still just 27 years old, doesn't turn 28 until next month. But I think that, and because of the uncertainty of this offseason, the offense should be way ahead of where we all think it should be.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the offense really click down the stretch last season. They were the 7th most efficient offense in the last few games, according to Football Outsiders, which is really impressive considering that they were dead last the year before. So I think Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury already had things clicking. And like you said, 10 projected starters who were with the team last year. They know the offense, they know the expectations. And the one guy you're adding is a 3-time All-Pro. That's a huge boost. So I have high expectations for the offense.
Certainly expecting a lot of points to be scored offensively, but MJ, you have to be able to stop your opponent as well. To quote General Manager Steve Keim, he vowed to fix the defense, and he certainly has done that with the additions in free agency and then, of course, the acquisitions during the 3-day draft. But fixing that front 7 with Jordan Phillips, Devondre Campbell, and Devon Canard will join us here momentarily. Those 3 starters, and all of a sudden, that front 7 is a whole lot tougher than a year ago.
Yeah, if you guys remember going back to the combine, I think we were looking at number 8, possibly wide receivers, offensive tackles. And when you go out and make the trade for Hopkins and then you re-sign Marcus Gilbert and Justin Murray, all of a sudden you solidified that. But, we talked about that front 7 on defense and the fact that they were able to go with the best available player in Isaiah Simmons, bringing in Campbell. You got depth there. Obviously, you look at Kennard and Chandler Jones coming off the edge. You bring in a guy like Jordan Phillips. You use a couple of mid-round picks on some run stuffers. That has to be the priority, and I think they accomplished that. Now it's going to take time for this team to come together. And, they could probably use a little bit of help at safety, but I like if they could stay healthy in the secondary. That could be their strength going into the season.
We are just 15 minutes away from your exclusive first look at the Cardinals 2020 schedule here on the Cardinals Schedule Reveal presented by SeatGeek. You look at the opponents and you look at the additions this team made in the offseason, Darren, and we talked about Jordan Phillips and Devon Canard. Their former teams are on this schedule which always makes for an interesting storyline for you and Kyle the week of the game. Sometimes some players kind of downplay that, but it always makes it more interesting that week. And for the Cardinals, that would be facing the Bills and the Lions.
I remember a player telling me once that any time a player says to you publicly that when they're playing against their former team that it doesn't matter to them, they're lying, because it always matters to them. Now, whether they're going to want to talk about it a lot publicly, and I'm sure there's also levels to how much it means to them. Some guys are going to be a lot more motivated than others, depending on how their situation went down with a former team. But it will matter. It will matter to Devon Canard, who did not expect to be released by the Lions when he was cut. So that was something that I'm sure sticks in his head. You know, Jordan Phillips, I think, is in a little bit different of a situation with the Bills. They gave him his opportunity that he didn't have with the Dolphins, and he got a big payday. So I'm guessing that's probably going to be a little different of a situation, but it still matters. You still want to be able to prove yourself against the teams that you used to play for.
As far as road trips are concerned, Kyle, places that maybe you haven't been, or I know you're all work and no play, but if you're going to allow yourself a little leeway and walk around a city, whether that's New York, Dallas, New England, Carolina, what has you excited about the road schedule?
I've never been to New England, well, for a football game, and I don't know if the team stays in Boston or not, but that's a fun city. So I'm looking forward to that one. Obviously a Patriots team that looks so much different than it did for so long with Tom Brady. And I think everybody's looking forward to that game. Cliff Kingsbury is a guy who played for Bill Belichick, played for the Patriots, and he credits him for helping him start his coaching career. So there's a lot of storylines with that one. And that's a great measuring stick game for the Cardinals. When you think you're on the rise, okay, go to New England and play them. If you compete well and even win that game, I think that's going to turn a lot of heads.
And Kyle, I'm going to put you in charge of asking Coach Belichick during the conference call that week to get his thoughts on Kingsbury, because I attempted during the league meetings a year ago and got all of about 5 seconds and a dirty look. So I'm passing that buck on to you if you're okay with that.
He's probably going to be on to Cincinnati at that point, so it might not work.
When it comes to the division, MJ, I know the NFL always likes to put those kind of matchups towards the back end of the schedule. But as far as whether you have, a lot of home games or a lot of road games, you always want to have a lot of balance. But a year ago, the Cardinals opened with 3 of 4 at home, and we know how that turned out. But you have to be able to protect the nest and win at home. The Cardinals were not very successful at doing that a year ago.
No, and just winning X amount of games over the last couple of years, 8 games, they got to protect the nest. And I'm sure when we unveil the schedule, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to purchase single game tickets and all that stuff from SeatGeek and azcardinals.com. But yeah, I mean, ideally, you look at it, they played Seattle on week 4, and then Thanksgiving or Halloween night, they had the Niners, and then they play the Rams in 2 out of 3 weeks. I mean, it's not ideal, even though the Rams are coming off a losing streak and they got kind of back in the winners column. But, we look at week 16 and 17. I like the fact that you either play division or conference games because you can catch up in the standings. And this year, 7 teams make the playoffs. So, we'll see if the Cardinals can, win 9 games. And I think 9 games can put you in. We'll see how many teams come out of the NFC West. But you like to see this team finish at least 500, scratch out some home games. And if you can win on the road in the division, that will go a long way.
I know, Kyle, you're the numbers guy. You're big into analytics, and I'll direct this to you because I read this on NFL.com earlier today with regards to the Cardinals' strength of schedule in 2020, tied for the 8th hardest, 51.8% the winning percentage of opponents in 2019. Big deal, no deal?
To me, no deal, because, you look at the schedule and there's a lot of tough teams that you see on there, especially how well the Niners and some of the other teams played. But injuries play such a big part in the NFL, where you're looking at a certain team right now who looks really tough on paper. And if they lose their quarterback, they're a shell of their former self. So I understand that the division looks really hard, and there are some other games out of the division that are going to be challenging for the Cardinals, but who knows what it's going to look like in November and December when we're trying to judge it now.
And I would say real quick, Craig, I mean, the Cardinals schedule is a great example, and it doesn't even have to be injuries. One of the reasons the Cardinals have the hardest schedule is they're playing a team that went to the AFC Championship game in the New England Patriots, and they don't have Tom Brady anymore. They have Jarrett Stidham, who spent his rookie year not playing, and nobody knows what he's going to be, and that's the assumption he's going to be the quarterback. But if it's Jarrett Stidham, I mean, that's a whole different ballgame than if you're facing Tom Brady.
Well, I'll even go back a year ago when you get that schedule and you go, week by week, and you try to figure out, predict what the record is. And then, Darren, you get to the regular season and all of a sudden the Carolina Panthers are on your schedule and it's not Cam Newton, but it's Kyle Allen. And you're thinking, oh, well, hey, the Cardinals have a great shot. And we know what happened that Sunday.
Yeah. That happens sometimes.
As they say, what you think will happen in September, October, November, December doesn't always kind of happen the way you expect.
I was going to say, go back to 2007 when Vinny Testaverde came off the couch for the dang Panthers and beat the Eagles in then University of Phoenix Stadium himself. That it's never. Maybe those Panthers backup quarterbacks, we just shouldn't let them come into the building anymore.
Well, how about a couple of years ago, you look at the schedule and you're going to Green Bay in December. Oh, you got no chance. Aaron Rodgers doesn't turn the ball over. Cardinals win that game and they end up firing that coach that night. So it's just so hard it's very subjective.
Yeah, it's always fun, but you're looking at a home slate, and I found this hard to believe, but Darren, this is the 15th season at State Farm Stadium. I know you haven't missed a single game and you're very proud of that mark, but 15 years at State Farm Stadium.
Look, we've talked about this a million times, and when you get 15 years in, it gets lost, and it should, because time goes on. But the bottom line is this team needed a new building, and you could see what happened to the organization and the franchise once they got in a new building. It was not an ideal situation playing at Sun Devil Stadium. They got the new building and things have gotten better. And I know it hasn't been exactly how all the fans have wanted it all the times, but they made it to a Super Bowl. They made it to another NFC Championship game. And it's one of the better stadiums in the league, and it's made a difference for this whole franchise.
All right, real quick, Kyle, when this schedule gets released here in a matter of minutes, what are you looking for?
I like the opener. I want to see who they're playing first, and then primetime games. I think that's interesting to see who's going to see them on national television. And I think there is a lot of intrigue about Kyler Murray, and I wouldn't be surprised if the NFL does get him on a bigger stage.
Well, I predict 4 bigger stages to your 2. So we'll see what happens here coming up momentarily. Again, this Cardinals schedule reveal, just a small part of what is a big Thursday night coming up at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock. Tune into the NFL Network for an NFL Network schedule release show, analysis of the entire NFL schedule, including scheduled to join the NFL Network General Manager Steve Keim, his thoughts on the Cardinals 2020 schedule at 6 p.m. The Big Red Rage with Paul Calvisi and Ron Wolfley. Go to 98.7 FM, Arizona Sports Station. Chairman and team president Michael Bidwell scheduled to be a guest on the Big Red Rage. And of course, cap off your night at 8 p.m. with episode 3 of Flight Plan, titled Drafting Away, your exclusive look inside the team's preparation and execution of the 2020 NFL Draft. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube. Again, that is Cards Flight Plan, episode number 3. Drafting away. Really looking forward to Flight Plan. And I know, Kyle, this is something that, your little, your oral history of Kyler Murray, and now all of a sudden, we don't have to wait a year. We're kind of getting an oral history of Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones and the Cardinals' interest, and then obviously selecting them.
Yeah, our broadcast department does a great job of getting behind the scenes and that sort of stuff, and seeing at the combine the way that they talk to those guys, trying to figure out if these are the right players to draft, knowing that they obviously did well in those interviews because the Cardinals spent high picks on Isaiah Simmons and Josh Jones. And the draft was lauded by a lot of people, and those 2 guys are the main reason why.
Of course, if they had just listened to Darren and Paul, we would have known that Isaiah Simmons was going to be the pick with that 8th overall selection. We didn't really need Flight Plan. We just listened to Darren and Paul.
That's right. We're just Nostradamuses on that podcast all the time.
Of course, it was a unique draft and certainly a unique offseason here for not just the Arizona Cardinals, but the entire NFL. And as the offseason progresses, the NFL schedule is just part of that. And the schedule release, again, coming up momentarily here. It's kind of a bigger deal than a lot of people trying to make, but looking forward to that. And, of course, MJ, cap off your night with flight plan. And these are always very well done. And even though we feel like we're a part of the team and the production, there's stuff that you and I learn and find out for the first time.
Oh, no doubt. And the latest we're going to see tonight is one where you're actually going to see an interview in the hotel room in the NFL Combine. And usually you show a guy taking a picture. He's in the room they did with Kyler Murray last year. And then that's when Sean Kugler has a conversation with Josh Jones. So that's stuff that we haven't seen, and I'm looking forward to watching it. And it kind of leaves you hanging at the end. You want more.
Well, yeah, and this is the first time we've had that inside scouting combine look as far as those interviews with prospective prospects, because the one that I really liked was Isaiah Simmons talking with Vance Joseph and Bill Davis, and him explaining what he was doing, and the little bit of a surprise on Coach Davis saying, "Oh, that's what you did? You did that too?" And it's just, for me, it's fascinating whenever you can get a behind-the-scenes look.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time talking about Vance Joseph and whatever team he went to, he was going to have to put him in the right spot. But Bill Davis is going to be one of his position coaches, and he's been a former coordinator, and he'll learn a ton from Jordan Hicks. So I'm really excited to see him in uniform.
Question now, of course, is just how much of an impact can Isaiah Simmons make right away? And I think we're all anxious to see him all over the field, but they'll be slow played, and that's something that we talked about earlier in the week on the Red Sea Report. But again, Darren, if this team is going to go anywhere in 2020, regardless of what the schedule looks like, that defense needs to be much better.
Yes, and they made the improvements. That was the number one thing for Steve Keim going into this offseason, was making the improvements. And now that they have a defense to match up with his offense, this is where they got to make some hay.
And with this team, certainly I think the excitement level for the Arizona Cardinals is very, very high at this point. But I know, MJ, you always kind of say pump the brakes a little bit, but it beats the alternative when you're being talked about in such positive terms.
Yeah, I mean, they've earned it. I mean, you look what they've done. They're up there with one of the best teams that are approved from a year ago, whether it was free agency, trade, or draft. So they've earned it. It's just there's a process, and you just wish all 32 teams were able to be at the facility, because I'm curious to see how it's all going to work out when it's all said and done. But obviously, right now, the Cardinals feel like they're doing everything they can to get their players ready, and looking forward to something happening down the road.
Well, everyone is at the same boat as far as working remotely from home as we are as well. Here is now just minutes away from the reveal of the Cardinals 2020 schedule. Of course, I think we all want to be home early in the season and home late in the season, but we can never have it all at the same. But I think, MJ, you always like to say, where's the bye week? And then, of course, how's the end of the season look for a particular team?
Well, and also how many primetime games? Where's your home opener? Where do is there a three-way road trip? Is it back-to-back home games? Are you at home for a couple, games in the month of November and December? So all those are all factors. And again, we just don't know, who's going to be playing those games based on injuries and everything else.
Aaron, you okay with spending a week back east if asked?
Why don't we take these things one step at a time? Let's find out what the schedule is first, and then figure out if I got to spend a week away from home.
Where's the fun in that?
Did you just get no commented, Craig?
I mean, I've had a couple. I've done that a few times now, and it usually doesn't end real well for the Cardinals. It doesn't pay off real well. They don't win those games on the back end a lot of times. So perhaps it's just better to go back and forth.
The 2020 Arizona Cardinals schedule is momentarily here. We'll give you the preseason look, and then, of course, all 17 weeks. Once that has all been revealed, We'll get the initial thoughts of new Cardinals linebacker Devon Canard. But here is the preseason look for the Arizona Cardinals on the road at Green Bay and the Las Vegas Raiders, and then closing at home with the Kansas City Chiefs, and of course, hey, big surprise, the Denver Broncos. So you got the Green Bay Packers and of course the AFC West on the docket for the preseason. All right, those are the 4 games that are good, but let's figure out what week 1 is for the Arizona Cardinals. And this, a division game against the San Francisco 49ers, week 1 at home, right out of the gate, the home opener that is at San Francisco, So the Cardinals will be on the road at San Francisco in week 1. So the NFC West right out of the gate. Let's take a look at week number 2 as the Cardinals will host the Washington Redskins, their home opener, week 2, September 20th. Of course, the Redskins with Ron Rivera and perhaps Dwayne Haskins as the quarterback. So the home opener on September 20th, and then week 3 in September, the last game of September, another home game. So back-to-back home games. And yes, the Detroit Lions are on the schedule for the 4th straight year. Kennard's former team to close out the month of September. So back-to-back home games for the Cardinals to end the first month of the season. In week 4, the Cardinals once again on the road. So 2 road games, 2 home games for the first 4 weeks. They are at the Carolina Panthers on October 4th, an early kickoff. Let's pay attention to how many early kickoffs the Cardinals have here in 2020. So the Cardinals on the road that first Sunday in October. Switch over to week 5. Cardinals on the road again at the New York Jets. Here's what we were talking about. Did the Cardinals stay over from week 4 to week 5, going from the Panthers to the Jets, and another 10 a.m. kickoff? So back-to-back East Coast road games for the Cardinals to begin the month of October. And week 6, Cardinals on the road again at Dallas, October 19th. And that, ladies and gentlemen, a Monday night game, 5:15, Monday Night Football, Cardinals at the Cowboys in week 6, but the third of 3 straight road games for the Arizona Cardinals. So we've got 1 primetime game. We know a second is already on the schedule because they'll always play a Thursday game. Let's move to week 7 for the Arizona Cardinals. And it's back to the NFC West. Cardinals will host the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday, October 25th. So after 3 straight road games and a Monday Night Football contest at the Cowboys, the Cardinals will return home in week 7 to host the Seattle Seahawks. And that closes off the month of October. Week 8, bye week, perfect placement, right in the middle of the season. I think the Cardinals could have asked for a better place for the bye. You host Seattle, you stay home, and then coming off the bye week in week 9, the back half of the regular season for the Arizona Cardinals. We'll see what they are going to have. Another home game, host the Miami Dolphins on November 8th at 2:25. The Cardinals have not hosted the Dolphins since 2012, and a good matchup between second-year head coaches with Kingsbury and Brian Flores of the Miami Dolphins. In week 10, another home game. So how about this? A stretch of 3 straight home games around a bye week. The Cardinals will host the Buffalo Bills on Sunday, November 15th. Cardinals, so far, not a bad-looking schedule as far as a run up on the road and now a run at home. Cardinals and Bills in week 10. In week 11, Cardinals go to Seattle. Thursday Night Football in Seattle, November 19th, week 11. To wonder about weather going to CenturyLink Field, but the Cardinals with their second matchup against the Seahawks, week 11, Thursday Night Football on Thursday, November 19th. Week 12, another road game at New England on November 29th. Again, weather could be a factor. Cardinals, though, curious who's going to be the Patriots quarterback with Tom Brady now at Tampa Bay. But the Cardinals with another road game at New England, November 29th to wrap up the month. All right, we go to the final month of the regular season. In December, it is week 13, the Cardinals at home to face the Rams. Their first time seeing the Rams, they have to wait all the way until December 6th. Much has changed with the Rams, a lot of changes. 11 of their 22 starters from the Super Bowl team no longer with the team. Of course, Todd Gurley released as well. So the first time the Cardinals will see the Rams, week 13th, December 6th. Week 14 on the road and a visit to the New York Giants on Sunday, December 13th. Seeing a lot of these long road trips in the month of November and December. So once again, fingers crossed as far as weather in New York in the month of December. Not always a match made in heaven. In week 15 on December 20th, the Cardinals will host the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Cardinals have won 5 of the last 7 matchups with the Eagles. And of course, the big storyline here, Carson Wentz, and of course they drafted Jalen Hurts. We'll have to figure out what that means for the Eagles, but that's well into the season, December 20th. 2 more weeks left to go, 2 more games. Week 16, and the Cardinals will host the San Francisco 49ers the weekend of December 26th or 27th. So it could be a Saturday game or a Sunday game around the Christmas Day holiday. But the good news is the Cardinals will be home hosting the San Francisco 49ers. And of course, right now, uncertain on a time, but mark it down that entire weekend. I got the family in town and the Cardinals and San Francisco 49ers in week 16. In week 17, the Cardinals will close out the regular season. And it's at the Los Angeles Rams on January 3rd at 2:25. So the Cardinals and Rams, once again, 2 matchups late in the season and finishing on the road. We always tend to see the Cardinals finishing on the road, but usually it's against the Seattle Seahawks. Last year, the Cardinals ended the regular season against the Rams, but now the Cardinals have completed their 2020 regular season, 17 weeks, 16 games, and the bye right smack in the middle in week 8. Don't forget, coming up at the top of the hour at 5 o'clock, you can tune into the NFL Network for the NFL Network release show for analysis of not only the Cardinals schedule, but the entire NFL schedule, as all 32 team schedules will be broken down coming up at 5 o'clock on the NFL Network. All right, let's bring everyone back in and take a look at what the schedule is right now as we kind of go around the horn here a little bit. And let's start with you, Darren. It was game by game. What stood out to you about what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like with regard to the schedule here in 2020?
Well, the first couple of things that pop up for me, to be honest, Craig, we were talking earlier about the national TV games. There was only a couple of them, did not get Sunday Night Football, and they're both on the road. So that'll be interesting. And then also, obviously, opening on the road against the defending NFC champions. I mean, there was a lot of speculation on whether the league would put all the AFC teams at the front part of a schedule for an NFC opponent. That didn't happen, and now you've got to go to the best team in the NFC right out of the box. There's going to be a lot of emotion in that game.
Kyle, what stood out to you about the schedule?
Yeah, obviously the Niners opener is going to be a tough game, but you do have some winnable games after that. Washington and Detroit at home, Carolina and the Jets on the road. You have home games against the Dolphins and the Bills. All those games are within the first 10 weeks of the season. This is a pretty backloaded schedule. You see some good teams at the end of the season. So I feel like the Cardinals have to make hay early on. And if they do, I feel like it's going to get really exciting in Arizona because people are going to really rally around this team.
MJ, we'll get your thoughts in a moment, but joining us right now on the phone, new Cardinals linebacker Devon Canard, the pride of Desert Vista. His first chance to wear the Arizona Cardinals uniform will be on the road against the defending NFC West champs and, of course, against the NFC conference champion, San Francisco 49ers. Devon, first and foremost, how you doing? How's the family? And welcome to town.
Thank you, man. Family is good, dealing with these times just like everyone else. And, man, I'm gearing up. I'm excited for the season. And I haven't looked at the schedule yet. I was kind of waiting for you guys to tell me. So, but I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Well, as a player, before we kind of get into the schedule, as a player, when it's released, and I know typically players are told to kind of, hey, it's only one game at a time, 1 week at a time. But when you get that schedule in the hand, what do you look for first?
First thing I look for is what's the first home game. And then if I know there's certain games like former teams I played on or teams I like or don't like or whatever, looking for when those games are and obviously the season opener, like who can we set the tone against, who's going to be the first team that we get to kind of make our mark on. So those are a few things I think about out the gate.
All right. Well, we can tell you that you open at the San Francisco 49ers. You've got your former team, the Detroit Lions, coming to town in week 3. But the first time you step on the field in front of the Red Sea at State Farm Stadium, week 2 against the Washington Redskins.
Nice. So you said San Fran, Redskins, and then Detroit?
Correct. Those are the first 3 games out of the gate.
Man, I like that a lot, actually. Starting with San Fran, won the NFC, obviously very talented team, but it puts us to the test right away. It gives us can get us motivated. From this point forward, we got to come out the gate clicking because we know they will be, and that's motivating. And then being able to start the season against Washington, I know Coach Ron Rivera has big plans for them going. Moving forward. So being able to make our mark there at home in front of our home crowd, hopefully, obviously. And, for me, then being able to come home and get right back again and play Detroit, that'll be a special one for me.
Some more good news for you, Devon. The bye week, week 8. You can't get any better than that, right?
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, right smack in the middle of the season schedule for the Arizona Cardinals. So here's the first 7 games again: at 49ers, host the Redskins, host the Lions, at the Panthers, at the Jets, at the Cowboys, and then host the Seahawks before the bye week. Of course, the Cowboys game, Devon, that's a primetime contest, national television on Monday Night Football.
That's at Dallas or in Arizona?
At Dallas.
Man, I'm pretty excited for that one. I was with the Giants earlier in my career, so I played in Dallas a few times. So being able to play, a primetime game in Dallas, that's going to be special. And I know they're a talented team, got a lot of stuff going on. So that's going to be another, big game and big test for us. So that's another one to, look forward to for sure.
Of course, that's the third of 3 straight on the road. I know kind of doesn't always sit well with players, but you got to go at Carolina, at the Jets, at Dallas. If the Cardinals do decide to stay back east, at Carolina and then going at the Jets, how do you feel about when teams kind of stay either on the East Coast or West Coast as opposed to going back and forth?
For me, to be honest, during the season, I'm locked in. So it doesn't matter. I feel like once you're a professional, that like whatever, the coach is, I'm sure he'll ask some of the players what they feel is best and all that. And whatever they come up with, at the end of the day, we're professionals. We got to be ready to go. I'm open to either way. I'll see what Coach Kingsbury wants to do. But I think, 3 road games, that can be challenging. But, everybody has some part of the schedule, some type of stretch like that. So it's just something you got to deal with.
Well, we got Darren Urban, Kyle Odegard, and Mike Jurecki here as well as the Cardinals Reveal, Cardinals Schedule Reveal presented by SeatGeek. Darren, Kyle, you got a question for our guest here?
I'm curious, Devon, you mentioned, we kind of already talked about the Lions. It's been a couple years since you played for the Giants. There's a trip back to New York in mid-December, possibly a weather game here. So that'll be interesting to see. But just when you're a couple teams removed, it's one thing to go play the Lions this year. It's another thing to go play the Giants. Is there still feelings when you play a team that you once were on, but it's a couple teams removed by now?
I think there's always, the Giants will hold a special place in my heart just for simply that they're the team that drafted me and brought me in originally. So, and even when I left there, I didn't necessarily want to leave right away. So, there's always, feelings that come with that. But I'm really good at tuning all that out. Football is football. I don't try to make any one game bigger than another or anything like that. I go out and try to play every game the same. I'm really big on, you can't get too high on the high, low on the lows, especially in a football season. There's too many factors going into play and too much going on.
And Devon, playing the season opener in San Francisco, like Craig mentioned, against the defending NFC champions, this defense has some turnover. You're a new guy. There's some other players that are new. What's the key to getting everybody on the same page for a game that big so early?
I think film study is huge. When we get into camp, obviously it's going to be very important for us to kind of get cohesive as a unit, especially with us not having OTAs yet. Hopefully that picks up, but if not, we're going to have to get on the same page and get used to playing with each other. And then from there, it's we got to dive into film on San Fran and see what they're doing effectively or what they did effectively last year, and that's where it's going to start. And then from there, it's the first game. You never know exactly what team's identity is going to be yet. Are they going to try to run the ball more this year, pass the ball, et cetera? So you got to kind of be ready to play relentless, have answers for whatever, their game plan is, because as it starts to unfold itself throughout the, first couple series, and just be ready to go.
Since you guys played on the road against the 49ers, talk about when you were in week one last year, when you played against the Cardinals, because you come home for a couple games back to back. What was the crowd like? Obviously the game was a tie, but what was it like playing in State Farm Stadium?
Man, it was electric. It was a lot of fun. I could tell the energy was very high. The fans were super excited for the Cardinals and the team last year. So to be able to come into that kind of environment to start the season off was really fun for me, especially since, Arizona's home for me. So I had a lot of friends and family in the stands. And it's weird. I got a lot of buddies who are huge Cardinals fans, but want to support me. So some of them wore my jersey. Some of them stayed in Cardinals gear anyway. So I'm not going to name any names. I think some of them are tuned in right now. So
on the line with us, new Cardinals linebacker Devon Canard. Again, the schedule is out. Cardinals will open on the road at the San Francisco 49ers, close at the Los Angeles Rams. But in the month, that last month of the season, Devon, you've got 3 of 4 at home, with the only outside of that game at the Rams in week 17. You do go to the Giants week 14. So you're talking about having to go to New York in December. I'm guessing there'll be a lot of Cardinal teammates asking you for maybe some advice on how to deal with the weather if we do get to that point.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure, but for me, it's the feel is still the same. You just got to go out and play. Once you start running around, there's no difference. I prefer the heat definitely, but you got to be ready to play in all forms of weather. And looking at the schedule, I like breaking it up. There's 16 games, so I like breaking it up into quarters. First 4 games, and then just keep going through the season like that. And if you can go as many quarters, you can go 3-1 or 4-0, or you're putting yourself in position to be successful. So that's kind of how first thing I kind of look at is like, all right, what's the first quarter of the season look like, second quarter, and you kind of go from there.
As far as difficult stretches on the schedule, I guess in just a first glance, the 3 games on the road, Carolina, Jets, and then Cowboys on Monday Night Football, I think a lot of fans are going to look at that as maybe the toughest stretch, especially early on in the season, Devon, as far as what this team is going to be looking at.
Yeah, that'll definitely be challenging. 3 road games and then come back and play the Seahawks. But you want a challenge. That's where you start to learn the identity of your team, and you can start to go out and earn it and build confidence against good teams and in trying circumstances. And if we can come out of that stretch with, some big wins, I think is going to give us a lot of confidence going into the bye week and into the rest of the schedule.
Devon, I got a quick question for you. There's been, now that we've gone through free agency and the draft, it feels like the hype train has grown for this team. What kind of feeling as a player do you have when you start hearing all the praise in May, when you haven't done anything on the field, but it's probably nice to have some praise? How do you interpret that? How do you kind of look at that?
To be honest, I don't buy into that stuff at all. There's a lot of teams that look amazing on paper in the off season, certain moves they make, but at the end of the day, this is a grown man's league, and you got to go out there and prove it week in and week out, day after day, and we got to earn that right. I think they've done a great job of putting us in position to give us a chance to be successful. But us as players and coaches, we got to come together and we got to put in the work and we got to actually do it. So, I don't really like, buying into all of that personally, because especially in this league, you've seen teams go from, undefeated to not making the playoffs and vice versa. So you just never know. And, you can't just assume that that's what's going to happen for us just because, we made some good moves.
I was going to ask you.
Go ahead, Fred.
I was going to ask you, when the schedule comes out, and obviously you played in a couple of different cities and you travel. Is there any, when you look at the schedule, you're like, I'm going to go to that restaurant when you look at the schedule initially?
I don't. I usually don't. Like sometimes I eat out if I have family and friends in town, but I don't do a ton of that. I save all, leaving the hotel and all those type of things for off season. Every once in a while, if we have a lot of time off, or like you guys mentioned, the 3-week stretch, if we're going to stay on the road or something like that, I might hit a couple of restaurants that I like. But I like staying locked in. It's a business trip for me, so sure. I don't do a whole lot outside of the hotel.
Devon, how are the Zoom meetings going as far as this virtual off-season, very unique circumstances, but how have you enjoyed it, and or how difficult has it been?
It's been good. Surprisingly, the coaches have done a really good job of coming into the meetings prepared and having information and being able to put us out. And I think, for me in the outside linebacker room, I'm one of the only new guys, so I'm the one that's kind of catching up to speed, but I'm doing everything I can to get ahead of schedule of every install, to where instead of like learning as he's going, I've already learned it and I have specific questions. And the one thing I think we're missing until OTA start is actually, when the live bullets start flying. So I try to kind of watch film and whatever our installs were that day, like say it was that a certain call, and I play that call in my head for that play, and like, all right, what would I do when this guy motions, or those type of things. So I try to give myself those kind of mental reps, since I can't go out on the field with my teammates and coaches right now and get those live reps, because I think those are the type of things that's going to help me as a guy who's learning a new system. Come in and day one of camp, I'm already kind of pretty sharp when it comes to a lot of things, and that's kind of my plan of action so far.
Before we had Devon join the show, MJ, what were your initial thoughts on this 16-game, 17-week 2020 season schedule?
Well, as we pointed out, I think we're all in agreement. You got to get off to a good start. That's stating the obvious. But you start looking at besides that Giants game after the bye week, Buffalo's an up and rising team. They haven't won the division since 1995. Maybe we'll see Tua against the Dolphins, but the Giants is a road game, and from that standpoint. But overall, I would think that the Cardinals have to get a nice little schedule or a record when you get to week 10, and then try to scratch out, because you got a lot of division games, and you're going against some really good opponents. So that's what it is. I don't think it's an easy schedule, and I don't think there ever is an easy schedule. We just don't know what's going to happen late in the year.
Yeah, I'm looking at 3 in a row on the road, Kyle, week 4 through 6, and then 2 back-to-back. The games 11 and 12 at Seattle and at New England. Those, as far as like road trips are concerned, those two stretches, really, at least to me, really stand out.
And the second one is the one that stands out to me, where you have at Seattle, and then the next week you're going to New England, two teams that have been among the best in the NFL for a half decade, and for the Patriots even longer. And then, I mean, you have the Rams, Eagles, Niners, Rams again late in the year. So I think it's going to be interesting. If the team gets off to a good start, like Mike was saying, there's going to be a lot of people excited, and then you get into this gauntlet of a schedule toward the end. And if the Cardinals can continue to win and keep pace, there's going to be a lot of talk about the playoffs at that point. So it sets up pretty interestingly.
I do like the idea as we look at that, the back-to-back at Seattle, at New England. First of all, you can't be getting further away than those two cities in the NFL. But the idea that you do have 10 days to plan for Bill Belichick, I think is going to help this team. I think with Tom Brady leaving, the Patriots are going to be under a microscope they've never really been under before with Bill Belichick, in terms of, okay, was it Tom? Was it Bill? And I think it's going to be important for Bill Belichick to make all this work. And I think he's always motivated, but I think this might give him a little extra motivation. And so I think Cliff Kingsbury having 10 days to prepare to go against his former coach when he was a quarterback, I think that's going to be really intriguing.
And how about the NFL? You know, they're always cute when it comes to the schedule. Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury going back to Texas.
Yeah, I mean, that Monday night game is going to be, there's a good reason that you make that a Monday night game. I mean,
I agree.
It's high profile anyways, but you're right. Having Cliff and Kyler going back to Texas for the first time, I think that's something to pay attention to.
Devon, this is your first time inside the NFC West, but as you look at the schedule, the Rams, you don't get them until week 13, but then you close the season 2 games against a division opponent in the span of 5 weeks. Positive or negative when you have to prepare like that?
What I found in experiences like in the past is, you know, it's less about X and O's and it's about the guys, because, you know, at that point you're familiar. You played them not too long ago. You've been watching them a ton on film because, you know, they're playing a lot of the same opponents you have to play. So you're very familiar with the guys, and you're just worried about going out there and executing. And it usually comes down to what team's going to execute the best and make plays when it matters.
All in all, let's go around the room. Kyle, we'll start with you. How do you feel initially about this schedule and how it sets up?
I think it sets up well early on for the Cardinals to have a chance to get off to a good start. The first game is obviously really tough, though, and I'm just imagining Cliff Kingsbury already in his pad drawing up plays and Kyle Shanahan doing the same. 2 great offensive architects, and I'm sure they're both going to have great wrinkles for each other when we get to week 1.
Darren, MJ, you go real quick before we wrap up this.
I was just going to say that those 2 national games I'm really intrigued by. To go at Dallas and at Seattle under the lights with Kyler Murray, that's what I'm looking for.
I'm thinking Devon Canard can go in there and get a pick or a sack, and the Cardinals can pull off the victory and start the season on a strong note and come home and try to stack wins. That's what it's all about.
I like the sound of that.
Devon, we appreciate you joining us here on the Cardinals Schedule Reveal. Hope to see you sooner rather than later, and hopefully in person. But again, welcome, and Cardinals certainly glad you're on board.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys in person, and let's get rocking.
New Cardinals linebacker Devon Canard is. We want to say thanks to everyone who joined us here, including our all-pro talented panel here, Darren Urban, Kyle Odegard, and Mike Jurecki, as the 2020 regular season schedule is out. Much more information can be found on azcardinals.com. Of course, coming up momentarily now, we invite everyone to go to the NFL Network for the NFL Network release show for complete analysis of the entire NFL schedule. General Manager Steve Keim's scheduled to be on the show as well. Then at 6 p.m., the Big Red Rage, more schedule breakdown with Paul Calbisi and Ron Wolfley on 98.7 FM, Arizona Sports Station. And then cap off your evening 8 o'clock, episode 3 of Flight Plan, presented by SeatGeek on Facebook and YouTube. This has been the Cardinals Schedule Reveal, presented by SeatGeek, the official primary ticketing partner of the Arizona Cardinals. I'm Craig Grialou. We hope to see everyone at State Farm Stadium for Week 2, the home opener.